count your fingers. If there are 5, then, for now, everything is fine. People think lucid dreaming is freedom. What they don't realize is that, sooner or later, you begin believing you're the god of your own mind. I believed it too, until the night I discovered that world was never truly mine. My name is Adam. It all began with what seemed like ordinary insomnia. At first, I ignored it. I assumed it would pass. But as the nights grew longer, so did the weight of my thoughts. Every morning I woke up feeling like I hadn't slept at all. My life slowly began to fall apart. I kept walking out of job interviews empty-handed. I stopped talking to my friends. Whenever my family asked if I was okay, I always gave them the same lie. I'm fine. I wasn't. I no longer felt like I was living my own life. It was as if I were watching someone else's from a distance. Then, in the middle of that downward spiral, I discovered lucid dreaming. People described it as a state where you realize you're dreaming and gain complete control over everything around you. So I started practicing. Every day I counted my fingers, checked digital clocks, flipped light switches on and off. They called them reality checks, habits meant to carry over into your dreams, so you'd recognize when you weren't awake. And one night, it worked. I found myself standing inside my childhood home. The clock at the end of the hallway was ticking backward. The moment I realized I was dreaming, I didn't feel fear. I felt freedom. I jumped out the window, and instead of falling, I flew. I drifted above the clouds. With a single thought, I changed the color of the sky. Then I built an entire city, a city that had never existed. I designed its streets. I raised its buildings. I created its people. When I wanted rain, it rained. When I wanted time to stop, time obeyed. It was my mind. I made the rules. I was the only god of that world. Everything I had failed to achieve in reality, I achieved there. No one judged me, no one rejected me, no one disappointed me. Eventually, I wasn't sleeping so I could live. I was living so I could sleep. I spent 14 hours a day asleep. Phone calls, messages, real-world responsibilities. None of them mattered anymore. My dreams had become my true home. Slowly, the line between dreaming and waking began to disappear. One morning, while looking into the bathroom mirror, a thought crossed my mind. What if this is a dream too? I smiled. I started checking clocks hundreds of times a day, counting my fingers, questioning everything. I no longer trusted dreams. I no longer trusted reality. But I wasn't afraid after all. What could possibly harm the god of my own mind? I was about to find out. That night began like every other. I found myself in my bedroom. Outside the window, there was no city, only an endless sea of gray fog. Dreams often ignored details. I smiled and looked at my watch. 03:17. I looked away, then back. 3:17. A third time it hadn't moved. The room suddenly felt heavier, the air filled with the smell of burnt wood mixed with wet earth. Instinctively, I turned around. Someone was lying in my bed beneath a gray blanket. This was my dream. Nothing could exist here unless I allowed it. I snapped my fingers, trying to wake myself up. Nothing happened. For the first time, my commands meant nothing. For the first time, I wasn't in control. I slowly walked toward the bed and pulled the blanket away. It was me. The same face, the same body, but my skin had turned gray. My lips were dark purple. I looked as though I'd been dead for days. I glanced down at my own hands. They were transparent. I could see the wall through them. Then, the body on the bed opened its eyes. There were no pupils, only two endless black voids. Those empty sockets stared directly into my soul. I had always been the creator, but for the first time, something I couldn't control was looking back at me. Its lips never moved, yet a voice echoed inside my skull. It sounded like hundreds of people speaking at once.
You're too late. This place has been empty for a long time.
I stumbled backward until my back hit the wall. The voice whispered again, this time right beside my ear.
You thought this was a game. You thought you were a god.
A brief silence. Then,
gods don't sleep.
I shut my eyes with every ounce of strength I had left. Inside my own mind, I screamed, "Wake up!" Reality shattered. I shot upright in bed with a deafening gasp. My lungs burned. Morning sunlight spilled through the curtains. The clock moved normally. My fingers, there were 5. I ran into the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face. My reflection copied every movement perfectly. I took a deep breath. It had only been a nightmare, a lucid dream gone wrong. I walked into the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. As I lifted it, I noticed the clock on the counter. 3:17. My heart stopped. The glass slipped from my hand, but it never hit the floor. It froze in midair. The water droplets hung motionless around it. Time itself had stopped. 1 second later, everything crashed. The glass shattered. Someone knocked on the door. I opened it. At the end of the hallway, I saw myself expressionless, watching me. I slammed the door shut and turned toward the mirror. There was no reflection, just the empty room behind me. The moment I reached out to touch the glass, my reflection appeared, but it moved half a second after I did. When I stopped smiling, it started. I ran to the window. Outside wasn't a city. It wasn't even darkness. It was a solid black wall. I threw my phone. Instead of bouncing back, it disappeared into the wall. I collapsed onto my knees. Then the voice returned. From everywhere.
You never stopped testing reality. You were simply testing the wrong one.
The room vanished. The walls disappeared. The ceiling dissolved. I stood inside an endless black void. Across from me stood something that no longer wore my face. It looked like darkness itself had taken human form. A transparent wall of glass slowly appeared between us. On the other side, my real body stood up from bed. It stretched, picked up its phone, called my mother. It smiled. My smile. I pounded against the glass. I'm here. That's not me. No sound reached the other side. The other me slowly turned toward me. It could see me. I was certain of it. It smiled, then gently placed its hand against the glass. Without thinking, I placed mine against it. Its lips moved.
Rest? No, the throne is mine.
Then it turned around, switched off the light, walked away. The glass faded into darkness. I was alone. I don't know how much time has passed. Time doesn't exist here. Now I sit inside this endless darkness, watching new cracks appear in the distance. Through them, I can see other people's rooms. Some toss and turn in their sleep. Some wake from terrible nightmares. Others, just like I once did, count their fingers, check the time, smile with relief. And as I watch them, I smile too, because now I know the truth. Everyone who believes they're the god of their own mind eventually surrenders that throne to something whose true nature they'll never understand. Reality checks do work. People are just performing them in the wrong world.